Julia Roberts's life is falling apart. Her husband, Danny, was seen with another woman and wants a divorce. At the same time, she found out her family name is fake, she's really Julia Mitchell. On top of that, the trauma from her stepdad's abuse is causing her serious health problems. At 56, friends say she cries all the time, and her kids barely talk to her. Even with all her money, Julia can't fix her broken family or her failing health. Julia Fiona Roberts was born on October 28, 1967, in Smyrna, Georgia, a quiet suburb of Atlanta. Her parents, Walter Grady Roberts and Betty Lou Berdemus, were passionate about acting. They ran a small acting school in Decatur, Georgia, where they taught children, including Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter Yolanda. As a thank you, the King family paid the hospital bill when Julia was born. It was a moment of kindness that connected her family to history in a way few people know. Julia's home was full of creativity but also full of struggles. Her parents were actors and writers, but money was always tight. Their marriage suffered under financial pressure, and by 1971, when Julia was just 4, they divorced. After the split, Julia's father stayed in her life, but her mother had to raise 3 children mostly on her own. In 1972, Betty Lou remarried, hoping to find stability. Instead, she brought home a man who made their lives worse. Michael Moats was not the stepfather Julia needed. He was abusive and unemployed most of the time. He treated the family with cruelty, creating a home filled with fear. Julia's older brother, Eric, later called him a freak and said he made their lives miserable. Even Julia, who rarely speaks about this part of her past, has made it clear she wants nothing to do with Moats. Her mother later admitted that marrying him was the worst decision of her life. The marriage lasted for 11 years before she finally left him in 1983, but by then, the damage had already been done. While dealing with Moats at home, Julia also suffered a heartbreaking loss in 1977. When she was 10 years old, her father, Walter, died of throat cancer at just 44. His death left a hole in her life that never really healed. Walter had been a loving father and a talented playwright who encouraged her creativity. Losing him at such a young age made her grow up fast. She learned early that life could be unfair, but she also learned how to push through pain. School didn't offer much relief either. Instead of finding comfort among friends, Julia often found herself the target of cruel teasing. Her wide smile, which would later become her trademark, was something classmates mocked. They called her Toothy, a nickname meant to embarrass her. The bullying hurt, but it also made her stronger. Years later, she used those painful memories to help others, speaking out against bullying and supporting campaigns that encouraged kindness. At 18, Julia Roberts made a bold decision. She moved to New York City in 1985 to chase her dream of becoming an actress. It was a tough start. She signed with the Click modeling agency, hoping it would help her get noticed, but modeling wasn't the breakthrough she needed. Jobs were scarce, and she struggled to make a living. To support herself, she worked different jobs while taking acting classes to improve her skills. In 1986, she got her first small role in the TV series Crime Story. It was just one episode, not enough to make her famous, but it gave her a start. She had no family connections in Hollywood, no easy way in, but she kept pushing forward. The rejections kept coming, but she didn't let them stop her. Her first film role came in Firehouse in 1987. It was minor, nothing groundbreaking, but it was another step forward. Then, in 1988, she auditioned for Mystic Pizza, a romantic comedy drama about 3 young women working at a pizza shop in Connecticut. She played Daisy Araujo, a confident and rebellious young woman. The movie wasn't a huge commercial hit, but critics loved it. Roger Ebert called Roberts a major beauty with fierce energy and predicted she would be a star. His words turned out to be true. At the time, Roberts was still working as a sales clerk at Taylor in New York. One day, she was selling clothes. The next, she was getting noticed by Hollywood casting directors. Mystic Pizza put her on the map, but she still had more to prove. In 1989, she landed a role that changed everything. Steel Magnolias was a drama with a powerful cast, including Sally Field, Dolly Parton, Shirley MacLaine, and Olympia Dukakis. Roberts played Shelby, a young bride with diabetes. The role was deeply emotional and required real vulnerability. She wasn't even the first choice. Meg Ryan had originally been cast but left to do When Harry Met Sally. Roberts stepped in, ready to prove herself. The production was challenging. Director Herbert Ross was hard on Roberts. He criticized her weight, her looks, even her acting. It was a tough experience, but she pushed through. Her performance was unforgettable. The film made $96.8 million against a $15 million budget. More importantly, Roberts won the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actress and received her first Oscar nomination. Julia Roberts was only 22 when she took on the role that would change her life. In 1990, she starred in Pretty Woman, a romantic comedy that became a massive hit. The film told the story of Vivian Ward, an escort who gets hired by a wealthy businessman for a week and ends up falling in love. Richard Gere played Edward Lewis, the sophisticated businessman who never expected to fall for her. Their chemistry was undeniable, and audiences couldn't get enough of them. But the movie almost didn't happen the way people know it today. Originally, Pretty Woman was a dark drama called 3000. It had a much grittier story with a sad ending where Edward leaves Vivian behind after throwing money at her. When Disney took over, they changed everything. The script was rewritten into a modern fairy tale with a happy ending. That change turned out to be the key to its success. With a budget of just $14 million, expectations weren't high. But when the movie hit theaters on March 23, 1990, it took off. It grossed an incredible $463 million worldwide and sold over 42 million tickets in the US alone. That was more than My Big Fat Greek Wedding in 2002, which had been one of the biggest romantic comedies ever. The film's success was historic, making Julia Roberts a household name overnight. She won a Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Comedy or Musical and received an Academy Award nomination for the role. She was officially Hollywood's new America's sweetheart. But getting the role wasn't easy. When the original production company folded, Roberts, who had already been cast, had to audition all over again. Disney wasn't convinced at first, but director Gary Marshall pushed for her. It was the right decision. She and Richard Gere were perfect together, and their connection made the movie unforgettable. Some of the film's most famous moments weren't even planned. In the scene where Edward shows Vivian a diamond necklace, Gere suddenly snapped the jewelry box shut, making Roberts burst into laughter. That reaction was real, and Marshall decided to keep it in the final cut. Filming had its challenges. Roberts was so nervous about shooting romantic scenes with Gere that she broke out in hives. During one moment, Marshall even climbed into bed with them to help her relax. The famous bubble bath scene had its own problems. The detergent used for the bubbles stripped the dye from Roberts's hair, forcing the crew to fix it late at night. Casting was another hurdle. Before Roberts was chosen, several famous actresses turned down the role. Even Gere wasn't sure about joining until Roberts convinced him during their meeting. She slid him a note that simply said, "Please say yes." That was all it took. Even though the film was a massive success, Roberts had no idea at first. When it premiered, she was away working on another project. She later found out that Pretty Woman had made $1 million in its opening weekend, a huge number at the time. Adjusted for today, that's around $21 million. Years later, Disney would celebrate it as their highest-grossing R-rated release until 2024. After Pretty Woman, Roberts became one of Hollywood's most bankable stars. She starred in hit after hit throughout the 1990s, including My Best Friend's Wedding in 1997 and Notting Hill in 1999. But in 2000, she made history. She became the first actress ever to earn $20 million for a single film. That movie was Erin Brockovich. At the time, top male stars like Tom Cruise and Tom Hanks were making $20 million per film, while women in Hollywood were paid much less. Roberts changed that. Her role as real-life activist Erin Brockovich was one of the best performances of her career. The film grossed $256 million worldwide on a $52 million budget, proving that a female-led movie could be just as successful as any blockbuster. She won her first Academy Award for Best Actress, and her salary set a new standard in Hollywood. Roberts later said she never saw the negotiation as a fight for equality, she just wanted to be paid fairly. In an interview, she explained, "I didn't feel soapbox-y about it, but I felt like, let's get real, let's be fair." Her success opened doors for future actresses to demand higher pay. But it all started with Pretty Woman. The movie turned Julia Roberts into a superstar, and decades later, it's still a classic. The red dress, the unforgettable romance, and the perfect blend of humor and heart made it a cultural phenomenon. What began as a small-budget film with an uncertain future became one of the most iconic movies of all time. Julia Roberts' career has been a roller coaster of massive hits, surprising missteps, and unforgettable performances. She went from being a fresh-faced newcomer to one of Hollywood's most bankable stars, earning record-breaking paychecks and an Academy Award along the way. In 1991, she took a big risk with Sleeping with the Enemy, a psychological thriller that marked a shift from the romantic comedies that made her famous. She played Laura Burney, a woman who fakes her own death to escape an abusive husband. The film had mixed reviews, but audiences were hooked. It grossed $175 million worldwide on a budget of under $20 million. That kind of success proved that Roberts was more than just a rom-com star. She could carry a thriller and bring in massive box office numbers. That same year, she starred in Dying Young, a romance about a woman who falls in love with a terminally ill man. It had all the elements of a tearjerker, but critics called it predictable and overly sentimental. It didn't resonate the way Sleeping with the Enemy had. It wasn't a disaster, but it wasn't a hit either. Then came Hook, Steven Spielberg's take on the Peter Pan story. Roberts played Tinker Bell, a role that should have been a dream. The movie made over $300 million worldwide, but behind the scenes, things weren't so magical. Rumors spread that Roberts had a tough time on set. Crew members even nicknamed her Tinker Hell. Spielberg later admitted that they had difficulties working together, though he blamed it on the personal struggles Roberts was going through at the time. The film's production dragged on for months, stretching from an expected 76-day shoot to 116 days. Costs soared from $48 million to over $80 million. In the end, Roberts and Spielberg never worked together again. By 1997, she was back on top with My Best Friend's Wedding, a romantic comedy that flipped the usual formula. Instead of playing the perfect love interest, Roberts took on the role of Julianne Potter, a woman who realizes she's in love with her best friend just days before his wedding. The film became a huge success, earning $299 million worldwide. Critics and audiences loved its fresh take on romance. The soundtrack became just as famous, with I Say a Little Prayer turning into an iconic moment. Roberts earned a Golden Globe nomination, and the film secured her place as the queen of romantic comedies. Then came the role that changed everything. Erin Brockovich, 2000, wasn't just a hit, it was a defining moment in her career. Based on a true story, the film followed Erin Brockovich, a single mother who helped expose a massive corporate cover-up. The movie made $256 million worldwide, and Roberts's performance was electric. She won the Academy Award for Best Actress, along with a BAFTA, a Golden Globe, and a SAG Award. This wasn't just a career milestone, it was history. She became the first actress to earn a $20 million paycheck for a single film. After that, she was unstoppable. She signed on for major films like Ocean's 11, which earned her $10 million, and Mona Lisa Smile, which brought in a record-breaking $25 million. By then, her films had grossed over $3.9 billion worldwide. Audiences loved her, and studios knew she could turn any film into a box office success. A survey even found that 54% of Americans would watch any project she starred in. Her Oscar win wasn't without a little controversy. In her emotional acceptance speech, she forgot to thank the real Erin Brockovich. The moment made headlines, but she quickly made amends backstage. Even with that small misstep, her performance remained one of the most celebrated in Oscar history. Julia Roberts' love life has been just as dramatic as the roles she plays on screen. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, she was one of Hollywood's biggest rising stars, and her relationships were constantly in the headlines. One of the most intense and shocking was her romance with Kiefer Sutherland. She met Sutherland in 1990 while filming Flatliners. The attraction was instant, and within months, they were engaged. The wedding was set for June 14, 1991, at the 20th Century Fox soundstage in Los Angeles. Around 150 guests were invited, and the media was ready to cover what was expected to be a Hollywood fairy tale. But just 3 days before the big day, everything fell apart. Roberts abruptly called off the wedding, leaving Sutherland stunned. Rumors spread that he had been unfaithful with a stripper named Amanda Rice. She later claimed that he called Roberts an insecure ice princess, which only made things worse for him. But the real shock came when Roberts didn't just cancel the wedding, she left the country. On the day she was supposed to walk down the aisle, she was spotted in Ireland with Sutherland's best friend, Jason Patric. Sutherland was heartbroken, but what hurt him most was Patric's betrayal. He later called his former friend a snake and admitted that the whole situation had been painful. But years later, he had a different perspective. He praised Roberts for realizing they were too young to get married and admitted that their relationship had been overwhelmed by fame. That scandal was one of the biggest Hollywood breakups of the decade, and just 2 years later, Roberts shocked everyone again. On June 27, 1993, after only 3 weeks of dating, she married country singer Lyle Lovett. The relationship seemed unlikely, she was a glamorous movie star, and he was a Texas-born musician, but something between them clicked. Their wedding was just as unexpected as their romance, held in a small church in Marion, Indiana, and planned in only 72 hours. After the ceremony, Lovett introduced Roberts as his wife during a concert that same night. At first, they seemed happy. Lovett often dedicated songs to her on stage, and they supported each other's careers. But the reality of their schedules quickly set in. Lovett was on the road for long stretches, and Roberts was constantly filming. They rarely spent time together, and their marriage struggled because of it. Some rumors suggested that Roberts had grown close to Before Sunrise actor Ethan Hawke during this time, adding even more tension. By March 1995, after just 21 months together, they announced their divorce. There was no drama, just an understanding that their careers had made things impossible. Roberts later said their split was ridiculously amicable and insisted she had no regrets. Lovett echoed the same feelings, saying he still had respect for her. For once, a Roberts breakup had no scandal attached. But her next relationship would bring more controversy than anything before. By 2000, Roberts had been dating actor Benjamin Bratt for several years, but everything changed when she met cinematographer Daniel Moder on the set of The Mexican. There was an instant connection, but there was one problem: Moder was married at the time. He was still with makeup artist Vera Steinberg, and their separation was complicated. Steinberg refused to sign the divorce papers for over a year, leading to tension between everyone involved. Frustrated by the delays, Roberts made a bold move. She was spotted wearing a homemade t-shirt with the words, "Aloe Vera," written across it, a clear message to Steinberg. The stunt caused a media frenzy, with many criticizing Roberts for being insensitive. In the end, Steinberg finally agreed to a divorce, reportedly after receiving a $200,000 settlement. Once Moder was legally free, he and Roberts wasted no time. On July 4, 2002, they married in a secret ceremony at her ranch in Taos, New Mexico. Even their guests didn't know it was a wedding until midnight when Roberts and Moder exchanged vows under the stars. Despite its dramatic beginnings, their marriage has lasted over 2 decades. They welcomed twins, Hazel and Phineas, in 2004, followed by their son, Henry, in 2007. Unlike her past relationships, this one has stayed mostly private. Rumors have surfaced over the years about marital problems, including disagreements over where to live, but Roberts has always shut them down, calling her marriage the best decision of her life. Julia Roberts grew up believing she was part of the Roberts family, but a shocking discovery changed everything. While appearing on PBS's Finding Your Roots with Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr., she learned that the name she had carried all her life wasn't actually hers by blood. The investigation started with her great-grandfather, John Pendleton Roberts. Researchers looked into old census records from Douglas County, Georgia, and found something strange. John's father was listed as Willis Roberts, but there was a problem: Willis had died in 1864, and John wasn't born until 1878. That made it impossible for Willis to be his biological father. To uncover the truth, DNA tests were done using samples from Julia and her first cousin. The results led to a completely different man, Henry McDonald Mitchell Jr. He had been living just a few miles from Julia's great-great-grandmother, Rhoda Suttle Roberts, at the time. The connection was clear: Henry was John's real father, not Willis. But there was another twist: Henry was already married and had 6 children with his wife, Sarah. His widowed mother lived just 4 households away from Rhoda, making it easy for them to cross paths. Their relationship had been a secret for generations, buried by time and lost in history. When Dr. Gates revealed this to Julia, she was shocked. "So we're Mitchells?" she asked. "You're telling me I'm Julia Mitchell?" It was a discovery that rewrote her entire family story. But despite the surprise, she took it with humor and acceptance. She admitted it blew her mind, but she still felt connected to the Roberts name, the only one she had ever known. This revelation also changed the way she saw her great-great-grandmother. Rhoda had been married to Willis Roberts in the 1850s, but after he died in the Civil War, she spent years as a widow. Then, in 1878, she had a son. There was no birth certificate to explain what had happened, and no one ever questioned it. Julia Roberts was at the peak of her career when she signed on to play Tinkerbell in Hook. The 1991 fantasy film, directed by Steven Spielberg, had everything going for it: a huge budget, a star-studded cast, and one of the most respected filmmakers in Hollywood. But behind the scenes, things didn't go as planned. Roberts was only 23 years old and dealing with a personal crisis. Her engagement to Kiefer Sutherland had just ended in a messy scandal. The tabloids were filled with rumors of cheating on both sides. The constant media attention followed her onto the Hook set, and soon crew members began calling her Tinker Hell. She was accused of spending long hours in her trailer, showing up late, and being difficult to work with. Spielberg, known for running a tight set, reportedly grew frustrated. There were even talks of recasting her, but with a budget already soaring past $70 million, that would have been an expensive decision. Filming stretched from 76 to 116 days, partly due to delays linked to Roberts, though other factors played a role. Dustin Hoffman's intense method acting and child labor restrictions also added to the extended schedule. Roberts's role made the experience even tougher. Unlike most of the cast, she spent much of her time acting alone in front of a green screen. Spielberg was her only point of interaction, and their already strained relationship only got worse. Years later, Spielberg called it an unfortunate time, a remark Roberts took as a personal betrayal. She had expected him to defend her against rumors but instead felt abandoned. In interviews, she called him a turncoat and admitted it was a hard lesson. Despite all of this, Hook was a box office success. It grossed over $300 million worldwide but didn't quite meet expectations for such a high-budget film. And while audiences enjoyed the movie, the tension between Roberts and Spielberg never faded. They have never worked together again. Years later, Roberts's life took a very different turn. In 2009, while filming Eat Pray Love in India, she discovered Hinduism. She had been shooting at an ashram near Haryana when she first encountered Hindu philosophy. Something about it clicked. She later said that seeing a photograph of Neem Karoli Baba, a Hindu guru, deeply moved her, even though she had never met him. By 2010, Roberts publicly identified as a practicing Hindu. This wasn't just a phase. She and her husband, cinematographer Daniel Moder, started visiting temples with their children. They chanted and prayed together, making it a central part of their lives. Her commitment to Hinduism even showed up in her work. She named her production company Red OM Films, a reference to the sacred sound OM. She expressed admiration for Hindu festivals like Diwali and even considered buying property in India, specifically in holy cities like Haridwar or Varanasi. Julia Roberts has never slowed down. Even after decades in Hollywood, she keeps finding new ways to surprise audiences. In 2017, she starred in Wonder, a film that touched hearts around the world. Based on R.J. Palacios' best-selling novel, it tells the story of Augie Pullman, a young boy with Treacher-Collins syndrome who struggles to fit in at school. Roberts played his mother, Isabel, a woman who stands by her son no matter what. Critics called her performance warm and deeply moving. The film became a massive hit, earning $305.9 million worldwide on a $20 million budget. It also scored an 86% critics rating and an 88% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. For Roberts, it was proof that her presence could still bring people to theaters. In 2022, she returned to romantic comedy with Ticket to Paradise. The film reunited her with George Clooney and was directed by O.L. Parker, the filmmaker behind Mamma Mia. Here We Go Again. The story followed a divorced couple who team up to stop their daughter from getting married too soon. It was fun, lighthearted, and full of the chemistry that made Roberts and Clooney such a great duo. At a time when romantic comedies struggled to succeed in theaters, Ticket to Paradise became a surprise hit. It earned nearly $170 million worldwide and proved that Roberts still had a special connection with audiences. She wasn't just the star of the film, she was also a producer, showing once again that she could shape a project from start to finish. But Roberts has never been just a rom-com star. She has always taken on intense and challenging roles. In 2013, she starred in August, Osage County, a dark family drama based on Tracy Letts's Pulitzer Prize-winning play. She played Barbara Weston, a woman trying to hold her family together while facing her mother's cruel and manipulative ways. That mother was played by Meryl Streep, making for a powerful on-screen battle between two incredible actresses. The film premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival before its wide release in December 2013. It received mixed to positive reviews, but Roberts's performance stood out. Vanity Fair called it searing and unrelenting. The role earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress, marking her fourth Oscar nod. The film itself grossed $74 million worldwide against a $25 million budget and received 16 wins and 67 nominations across different award circuits. Roberts has also embraced new ways of storytelling. In 2018, she made her television debut in Homecoming, an Amazon Prime thriller directed by Sam Esmail, the creator of Mr. Robot. She played Heidi Bergman, a caseworker at a mysterious facility designed to help soldiers adjust to civilian life. But as the story unfolds, Heidi starts to realize that something isn't right. The show moves between two timelines, one where she works at the facility and another where she struggles to remember what really happened. Homecoming was unlike anything Roberts had done before. It was tense, psychological, and filled with unexpected twists. Critics praised her performance, calling it one of her finest in years. She played Heidi with quiet intensity, slowly revealing the depth of her character's confusion and fear. The role earned her a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress in a Television Series, Drama. Roberts wasn't just the lead, she was also an executive producer, showing once again that she had a hand in shaping the projects she took on.